Hey look guys, I got new glasses! Plus, I love Warmachine. Hey there guys, this is me, Malorian, and this is going to be another video, and this one here is going to be about why I love Warmachine. Now, if I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of videos talking about the tactics and different stuff like that, if I'm intending to try and get new people into the game, maybe I should tell them why I actually love this game. So I thought this would be just a really simple, easy first video to get out there to really just talk about why I play this game and why I think you should be playing this game too. And I think it's kind of three main boxes of why I do this. I love it because of the story behind it, the models, and also the actual gameplay as well. Now, let's try and attack these one by one, but before I get into it, I want to say that everybody is different. Across the room for me is a whole bunch of board games, and I mean, there's Shadows over Camelot, there's Samurai Swords, there's Carcassonne, Power Grid, so many different games, and if you talk to people and ask what their favorite board game is, some will say one, some the other, and that's because they really are looking for something different, something competitive, something cooperative, something where they can build. Whatever they're looking for, that's the board game they go after. And the same thing happens when you're dealing with, you know, any other hobby. So what I'm going here, and I'm going to tell you why I love Warmachine. I know very well that other people are picking other games because of their own reasons. So don't think I'm coming on here saying that your game's garbage and you should be playing Warmachine. I'm really just coming on here telling you why Warmachine's awesome and why you should consider playing it. So let's first start with the story. Now, when I play a game, I want there to be something else behind it, not just like, you know, oh, we're moving these blocks, and if this block gets here, I win. Yay! That, you know, that's not going to really hold your imaginations. I love the idea of having, like, you know, dragons and monsters and warriors and all that behind it, and you really get that here in Warmachine. Now, a lot of different games will have their own, but this one here has enough of it, at the very least, that I can really dig my teeth into it. You know, I always loved it when I played Warhammer Fantasy, the idea of orcs and goblins and different war bosses and stuff like that. But what I get to do here is kind of the same thing. There's different factions. If I want to be playing like big demonic monsters, I could be playing Everblight. If I want to be trying, like, you know, you're kind of like Khador, Russian troops, I can be doing that. If I want robots, I can do that. There's just so many different themes within Warmachine that it's not even just in one realm, right? When I played other games, they were all like sci-fi or fantasy or something like that. But this has such a broad spectrum for when you're playing, say, Retribution, and you're looking at them with all their high-tech weapons and stuff like that, to going to Minions, where they're just like, you know, basically from the swamps and coming up with their spears and stuff like that, and everywhere in between. When I'm doing demo games, I love doing Cygnar versus Mercenaries, and I'll do Striker versus Magnus. And so what I'll do in these battle boxes is I'll have them set up, but I'll also tell my opponents what the story is behind it. That Magnus used to be one of the generals fighting on the Cygnar army, but when the king was overthrown by his brother, well, he stayed loyal to the old king. Meanwhile, Striker came in with the new king and is now very faithful to them. So even though they're kind of enemies and they hate each other, they're both just kind of very loyal Cygnar generals, and that's where kind of the story is behind them. So that's the way I like to introduce it, and really, like I say, no matter what you're trying to get from it, there seems to be that type of storyline there for you to get into, depending what faction you want to get into. And then as well, past the faction, you know, if you look at Cygnar, you got your jacks you could go with, you got your kind of knight things if you're looking at precursors or sword knights, you got your trenchers, you got all, like, you know, there's just so many different things out there. The pistolier guys, I mean, there's so much there you can actually dig your teeth into. So whatever you like the idea from a story perspective, it's there for you. The next thing is the models. Now, I have to say that Privateer Press has come a long way with their models. Their models before were kind of like, ooh, they're very simple, monopose, and like that's what they are. But over the years, they've just gotten really good. Now, a part of this can kind of transfer into the last one where, hey man, if you love building monsters, there's monsters there. If you like dealing robots or troops or powerful warcasters. It's all there for you to build and do. And again, from the broad spectrum of models that are there available to you, man, I mean, whatever you like to build and paint, it's there. If you like doing pirates, sure, go for it. If you like doing trolls, they're there for you to do it. There's so many different things that you can go and build and do. And although I do really miss the customization, where you go and customize your own bosses and stuff like this, man, I mean, like, somebody brought up in one of the earlier videos, Orko, and I mean, like, the idea that in Warmachine, I could be saying, like, you know what I'm going to do with Haley? I'm going to put her on, like, give her, like, a magic cape and have her flying around the field and stuff like this, right? Like, you can't do that. And, I mean, maybe they'll come to when we get to gameplay later on, but there still is just a lot of different models, and even though there's not a lot of play you can do with the way you build them, there are still some good options, right? If I want to be doing any sort of like weapon swaps or head swaps or kit swaps, the ability is there. The building part of me that loves to build an army and customize it just that little bit is still there. I mean, one of the examples is my Thexus that I made to be just like Professor X, which I then took a hero clicks Professor Xavier and then convert it to be Professor Thexus. You know, like, you can do that stuff. And so that's a game, if you gave me a game where like the models were pre-made, that would bore me, you know, because there's that part of that hobby that I love, building things and putting things together. The painting, that part, you know, it can be very calming. Sometimes it's very frustrating, but I gotta say too that, I mean, there's at least a little bit there that for me, I like to paint those models as well. I might not be the best, I might be close to the worst, but it's, you know, after a long day, sometimes it's nice to pull out a nice easy model and paint it while you watch a show or something. So I love that about this game too. Although, I'm saving the best for last, which is the gameplay. When I got introduced to the gameplay of Warmachine and Horrors, oh man, that's really what really pulled me in. Because again, I played other games before, and you know, you always find the loopholes, and you find the power builds, and that's what you do. And there's even some loopholes that you learn about. You're like, you know what, I'm just not going to do that because it's going to wreck the game. In Warmachine, it's completely different. In Warmachine, they really kind of come out and say, you know what, well, they don't go with this motto anymore, but the motto used to be, play like you got a pair. And they've, you know, moved away from that sort of like sexist talk, and they made sure that the rules are gender neutral and stuff like that. But it was really designed saying, hey, we are going to build rules that are balanced and fair, so come to the table ready to brawl. Throw out your best. You're going to be taking somebody else's best, so be ready to fight. And I thought at first, like, okay, let's figure out what the power casters are, and you can just go ahead and do that. But that's not really what the game is whatsoever. When I really got into it and I learned, like, okay, you can counter this type of model or this type of unit with this other one, well, that's great, but there's multiple ways you're going after the game. So in other games, where it's just like, well, kill the other side. So I'm going to try and take as many guns as I can and try and roll as many dice and try and take as many dudes to roll as many dice to try and kill you, or try and take the best guns per point. That's not going to work here, because all of a sudden there's going to be these counters in these different win conditions. The fact that you can win either by caster kill or scenario or death clock was such an eye-opener to me. I had, in fact, went out and I did like a mission for myself to try and win a game without killing a single model, and I was able to do it just by throwing dudes into my opponent's face, going and scoring the different scenario pieces, and there you go. You can win that way. Or if you're up against something you just can't beat, the lockdown scenario, you can try slowly feeding your force so that you can work on their death clock and stuff like that. It's just, there's so many other ways to play. Whereas before, if you found something where it's like, well, I'm a vastly better player than the person on the other side, but what do you know? They have the best stuff that they ordered online and they got the best net list. I just lose because of math. But when you play this game, it really comes down to the better player. The better player who knows and understands the game is the one who's going to be winning. I don't know what I'd have to say. Let's say 90% of the time. And sure, it's still a dice game, there's still luck in there, but the vast majority of the time, the way it's designed, the best player is going to win. And that's done by a couple of ways. One is like what I'm telling you, where there's multiple win conditions. But the other beautiful thing is the two-list system. People from other games don't understand how big of a deal this is. Whereas sometimes before, I'd come to a game and be like, well, they got the counter to my list, guess I lose. Well, now when you're coming in with two lists, you can build around that. And you can say like, ooh, you really counter this one, guess I'll be dropping this one instead. And it makes for a better game. You're not going to have any of those things where like, well, I took an hour to travel to the game store and I only have time for one game. Oh, what do you know? I got the really crappy matchup. Guess I'll just get my butt kicked and go home. No, you just play that other list, have a better shot of winning, and you play that and have a good solid game. That is such a strong mechanic that, again, people in Warmachine take for granted, but from people that are outside, they should really be looking at this. Even something like using the death clock is amazing. In other games, when I've gone to a tournament, you'd have the people that would be designing lists to not finish the game. They know that when you go to a tournament, a round will only be 2 hours. And so they'll take all the guns and slow play and shoot you from across the board. And by the time that you get in there, you're finally like, okay, now you shot me, I get to chop you in the face with my axe. Well, sorry, the round's over. Guess we better tally up those points. Oh, what do you know? You lose. Well, now with this death clock, all that's gone. And now it's all completely on you to play your turn, play quickly, and get at it. There's none of that, you know, trying to work the clock against your opponent, other than just making them having to honestly use their own clock to play the game. And that's such a relief that I don't need to deal with that stuff anymore in that slow play from the other side. If somebody wants to take their time, boom, I'm going to clock over to you while you think about what you're doing. And that's how you make sure that the person's playing the game and keeping it going. So good. Now, the other part I want to talk about is how Games Workshop keeps on updating the rules. I know sometimes right now people are saying maybe it might be too much, but man, coming from other games where things will stay broken for too long, or it always seems like the newest army coming out is supposed to be the most powerful thing possible. No, we're dealing with a company that wants balance. I'm sure there might be some times like, geez, this new thing seems really too good, but they do a very great job of trying to always reassess where things are and balancing wherever possible. And as an experienced gamer from multiple systems, I love that about Privateer Press. The fact that if something is completely overpowered, that I can feel very comfortable that they're going to come out there and fix it. And I'm sure right now there's things that people say like, well, they haven't fixed this yet. Man, if you look from some of the other things that were broken like that in the past, say like the way that Gatsby 2 used to work or Haley 2, they came in and they fixed that stuff. Bradagus with the triple port, like that type of thing ruins games. The things they have right now, you might think about it, are kind of powerful, but they're not like before where they just mathematically win the game without any skill type thing, right? So I just love the fact that they keep on working on those things. And then the actual gameplay itself, it's so clean, so nice. The fact that you have all those micro interactions. When I used to play some other games before, and I'm going to attack some other games right now a little bit as examples. Again, you might love these games because of different aspects of them, but I'm going to tell you right now for parts of it why I enjoy Warmachine more. And let's start off with like 40K, where it's like I plop down my stuff and I start shooting my guns and I just roll my dice. And man, was that just kind of boring to be like, oh, you won first turn, guess you get to roll your dice first. Oh, you killed my stuff first, guess you'll win. No, all that's gone. When you have guns now, they're like range 10. If you have something that's like range 14, oh my god, that's a long range gun. Not like before, it'd be like range 120 inches or something, or unlimited inches. And it was just ridiculous. Movement in this game is so much more important. Positioning is so much more important. The fact that you will have to really be careful to guard your flanks, to feed some of a unit. I mean, as much as I loved Warhammer Fantasy, the fact that you were doing the blocks did make it very simplistic. And you're like, push this here, push this there. And now all of a sudden where you're like, well, how many of these models do I want to put forward to try and draw them in? Where do I want to position them to try and do free strikes? So if you try and attack over here, okay, you can, but I'm going to be taking a swing. Or where can I position things where like this one's now guarded and it's actually going to be blocking line of sight to this model, or stepping the zone. Man, positioning in this game is so massive. And those micro interactions again, where this one model going to there, I mean, in other games, one model attacking one other model is like, well, what? It's like the flapping of a butterfly. It's one little flap. It means nothing in the long run. Where in Warmachine, it can mean the world. One wrong position of one model can determine the winner or the loser. So again, the player who has the most knowledge and the most skill and the most care in their gameplay is probably going to win. And that's, to me, is the hallmark of a very good game. If you can go into a game and have as little as possible of the determination of the winner being determined by dice, that's fantastic. And at the same time, it is a dice game, and sometimes crazy things do happen. We're like, okay, you have like a 5% chance to kill my caster, and sometimes these things happen. Sometimes you roll triple sixes or whatever, but you know, that keeps the game fun. But it is, again, I feel, kept to that minimum where it's there for a little bit to let some wacky stuff happen during the game, but still having the majority of the reason why one side won over the other was because of the skill of the player. And so between all of these things, between the fact that there is a solid story, the fact that there are solid, interesting, and varied models that I can pick from and build and love my ability to put these things together, to paint them, to convert them, and then such a strong gameplay that's well supported by the company Privateer Press. This is why I love Warmachine, and this is why I am a huge press ganger for it. Even though they stopped the press ganger system, I am doing my part all the time to run tournaments, get new people into this game, keep people interested, because I just love this thing and I want everybody else to love it too. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching me, gush over my favorite game. If you love it too, please post down below. If you love something else, please post down below. Let's just keep the comments all about the love, though. I don't want to get too much into the attacks. We can't get into stuff like I say, like, hey, in 40K it works like this, over here it works like this, and that's why I think it's, more enjoyable for me. But let's, we're all just playing with stompy toys, right? Like, turn, 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 turn. Let's realize that, this is just the way that we all have fun after a long day of hard work while we come back to our families, right? So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you again later. Bye.